You know what I mean? And it's like, because regardless of what you were involved in, they knew where your family lived, right? So they associated you with certain neighborhoods because well, he's got cousins that live over there. His auntie lives over there. So he's from over there. Yeah. So regardless of the message we try to convey, you know, the focus that we had on sports, whatever the case was, you just got to associate. It's prison mentality that trickles down on the street is what happens. You know what I mean? So again, it's like, well, you know, we're thinking if he comes up here, we're just going to box it out. You know, we're just going to square up. We're going to fight. It is going to be what it is.
Easy work.
But then people were telling us, like his girlfriend was telling people to tell me, no, you don't understand. He's not coming to fight. You know, he feels disrespected. He's trying to make a name for himself in these streets. Yeah. So by the grace of God, we missed each other on campus. This same exact day, it came out an hour later, he killed a police officer, trying to make a name for himself to get initiated into this gang that he was trying to get into in broad daylight.
Outside of a court.
Yeah. So situations like that is when I say, like, God spared me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I'm sitting here thinking, like, we're going to box it out, but bro wasn't trying to box. You know what I mean? He had his intention was to murder someone that day to make a name for himself in this gang that he was trying to get himself established with.
Bro, that means I love you, bro. That means I'll go to war with you.
Fire, baby.
The reason why you need to know your identity is because when you know who you are, people don't get to define it for you. So when I tell you guys who you have in your circle is important.
You're listening to the Bros to Men podcast with Kameron Persad, Jeff T. Osborne, and Roy Rand.
Yo, what's going on, everybody?
Good, everybody.
Hey, you already know what time it is. Yes, welcome to another episode of the Bros to Men podcast.
Yes,
super excited to be here. Yo, this is the podcast where we create content that inspires
action.
That's right.
And so we want to make sure that we're able to drop jewels in this time, keep it real, raw, transparent, so that everybody who watches it, regardless of where you're coming from, you're going to be able to walk away with something that you can put in your pocket to help you with your business, whether that's a spiritual walk, whether that's a relationship, whether that is your schooling. It don't matter where you are, what walk of life, your physical fitness journey, or whether you start in a million companies. We're going to make sure that we're able to just blend with you guys and rock with you guys in a way that allows you guys to have growth. So I'm really excited about today's session. As you guys know, I'm here with my brothers. Go ahead, man. Let them know who you are.
It's your boy Roy. They call me Dips.
Come on. Yes, sir. Kameron Persad. Good to see y'all, man.
Hey, man. And you know it's me, J.O.
Let's go.
Jeff T. Osborne.
Yes, sir.
And I'm ready to jump into this episode. As you guys know, if you guys been watching, we have been on this journey of really letting you guys get to know who we are. Getting us to know some crazy stories, some in-depth stories. I think I shed some tears and got real emotional. And then Dip shared his story, got us inspired and to really get up off of your butt to go do something to change your life. And today it's the third member of this Three Amigos. Man, our boy Cam. And so this one, hey, listen. If you guys are tuning in on this one, we don't know where this is going to go.
I don't know where it's about to go.
They don't know where it's going to go. We've been talking about this for a while because these stories are real and they're raw. And so when it comes to that, we don't know what emotions are going to be inside it, whether we're going to laugh, whether we're going to cry. But at the end, I think we're going to get into a great episode. Diff, what you think, man?
Yo, I'm super excited because, you know, a lot of people, Cam don't really put himself out there like that. He's just a man that handles his business like a man should. But today, I think a lot of people are going to get some questions answered, like how did he build his mentality, you know, how he earned his money, and just how he became the person he is today. So I think that's going to help a lot of people.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
I'm going to try, bear with your boy, man.
Dog, are you ready for it?
I don't know.
We're going to find out, man. Hey, so let's jump into this, man, without any hesitation.
Yes, sir.
Cam, man, everybody has seen you on here. You've always got this style, this flair about you. You've heard... they've heard of you from us growing up and kind of where we are, man. But give them an insight briefly of where you are and just take us on this journey today of what has allowed you to be who you are, bro. I mean, and it's gloves is off today.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
The gloves is taking the filter off.
Hey, no filters, none of that, man. So just let us know, man, where did you grow up? And bro, give them an insight to your childhood, bro.
Yeah, man. Quick little background. You know, I represent Pomona Town Business, Pomona School District. Family's deep rooted in Pomona. Pops came to Pomona in the 80s out of the East Coast, New York.
Okay.
Mom's originally from Compton.
Okay.
But Pops is from the Caribbean, South America. He's from Guyana, which is, right next door to Venezuela for those who don't know. So geographically, it's South American, but culturally, it's Caribbean, So it's reggae, it's soca, it's good curry food, it's family. So I grew up in what I consider the best of both worlds. My mom is Creole, so my family's also very rooted on my mother's side into our Louisiana culture. Mom makes a gumbo, we eat the seafood.
Hello.
So deep rooted on that side. But it was good, man. Like I had, I think, the best childhood growing up. My mom was just a person that's very family rooted on my mom's side. My grandfather was very adamant about, he used to tell us things like, you don't get over on friends and family. You make sure the family's taken care of. That's what a man does. If your family taken care of, what else do you have to brag about? Like, it don't matter what else you do in life if your family's not straight.
Right.
So a lot of morals instilled on that side. And my dad, same thing, very close-knit family, but my dad was just a person that just taught me to do right. And he didn't beat religion down our throats. He's not a religious person, but he just believed in, like, you work hard and you just do the right thing. So I think, I had the best of both worlds growing up. My dad was very academically focused.
Right.
Pops didn't play about the schooling. He didn't play about the grades. What's summer vacation? You're going to be doing some schoolwork. That's what you're about to be doing. But I'm just going to throw this out there to say that one of the biggest lessons I learned early in life, and this is kind of transitioning to answering the question where you ask, where am I at now? It's just that you can always reinvent yourself. It's never too late to reinvent yourself. And I think the first major example I had of that was when I was a teenager, probably 13, 14 years old. My dad switched careers. And
I didn't know that.
He decided to go into the medical field. And my dad was probably, forgive me, Pops, if I get this wrong, but I'm going to say he was probably around my age, like mid-30s, probably late 30s. And I think that was the first real example I had of just someone that just put their head down, made no excuses, and just went hard for his family. My dad was still working full-time, and he was going to school full-time after he would get off of work. And this is before online schooling. This is like when you had to show up. You had to go put your butt in the seat. You know what I mean? So he would work 8 hours, go put his butt in the seat, be there for an hour and a half, 2 hours of school, come home, study and do homework. And I remember being like 13, 14 years old, waking up like 3 o'clock in the morning, and my dad was at the kitchen counter doing homework. And then 3 hours later, getting my brother and I up, ready for school to do it all over again. So I had this example of watching my parents go back to school later in life, and he was very adamant about, my current job isn't going to give you guys the future that I want you guys to have. And the best way I can give you guys the future I want you to have is by doing what I got to do now. So I got to see that as a teenager, my dad going to school, busting his butt, 3 hours of sleep a night. If it was loud in the house, bro was studying in the garage. He would go out in the garage, freezing, to read, be up to 4 o'clock in the morning, and then turn around and get us up for school. So that was like my foundation of just watching hard work. And his siblings from, Guyana's third world country also did the same thing. They came here, focused on education, went to school late in life, and ultimately started doing very well for themselves. But in my early years, it was just watching that grind. I think that's really what kind of set a major foundation for me to say that you can always reinvent yourself. It's never too late.
So normally when somebody sees that, you see your dad, you see that grind, you see that work ethic, being 13 years old as a teenager, most people would think that solidifies and you're like, okay, this is the route I'm going to go.
Right.
Like, my dad's working hard. He's in the medical field.
Right.
This is definitely the direction I'm going to go in. I'm going to hit these books. I'm going to crush these books. I'm going to do everything that I normally am going to do to stay on this path.
Right.
Was that the path you took?
Nah.
It's crazy because he always knew medical field stuff. Because I was going to EMT school and I got out of EMT school. I would be like saying stuff and Cam knew what I was talking about. He knew more than me. I'm like, yo, how you know this? Like, Pop's a nurse.
Yeah.
So I always thought you would kind of go that direction. Or, police and law enforcement and medical, it's intertwined.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
close. But what pushed you to be a little bit different? And what inspired you? Because you played sports. What inspired you to be a little bit different? Because you were always super smart. Because the whole family, And not saying that one side is better than the other, but I know Pop's side, they're geniuses.
Yeah.
Like super smart.
Yeah, my dad's side of the family was very medical focused. You know my cousins like Arnold and my young cousin Sarojini.
Yeah.
They all became nurses because they all chose a medical route because that's what our parents did. We saw the lifestyle it provided. We saw the flexibility, the 3-12 work schedule. And it's like, it's great money. You can travel, nurse. You can go see the world, the country if you want. But I think I learned those things like you mentioned, having those conversations because my dad was he exposed us to a lot.
Yeah.
Both my parents, my mom and my dad, they did a fantastic job at exposing my brother and I to just any and everything. Like we were some of the most exposed kids that I can think of.
What do you mean like when you say exposed? Like what does that mean? Like exposed to what?
Like anything that was out of our norm. I think so many people grow up you just know what you know because that's what your parents allowed you to see as a child, right? My mom would take us to African festivals. We were active in our Native American culture. My dad made sure we knew our West Indian culture. My mom would take us to mariachi dancing just so that we can be exposed to it. So, different cultures, right? And it's like, that's what living is. It's getting outside of what you're comfortable with. And what it also does, it allows you to be open to other people that are different than you. So it's like a lot of times you get in environments and you shut down because you're like, this is different than what I'm used to. This is different than what I know. Right. But man, we embraced it. Like anytime we would say, for example, we would go to an African festival, maybe it was food we weren't necessarily familiar with. It was not an option for us to say no. My mom would say, you're going to try it. You don't have to like it, but you're going to try it. You're going to try it. So by the time we were a teenager, my brother and I could tell you about Thai food, Indian food, Southern Creole food, West Indian food, you name it, we've tried it.
Right.
Because that was like a very big focus for my parents was to make sure that we were exposed to things that we weren't necessarily used to. And I think it was the same for like my career choice. I think nursing and the medical field was what was immediately in front of me. But I think I craved something different because it was immediately in front of me.
Yeah. So what was that craving, Doc? Yeah. Because I asked you, did you go that route? And immediately you said, nah. Like you said, you didn't say no. You said, nah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So paint this picture. You've been exposed and you are being exposed to a lot of different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where did you what route did you decide to go in your life? If you're saying no, what do you mean by that? Like when you say nah, what was that?
So I think this goes for a lot of kids who have parents that come from other countries. They have a very clear route for you. And what I mean by that is like you can go to school, you can get good grades.
Yeah. You
can go to college, and you're gonna pick a high paying career. That's life. And I think for me, although I saw my dad do that, and the typical 9 to 5, I always had this craving, I think, or maybe like this pull on me that I think I was created for more.
Yeah.
And I think I was fortunate at a very early age and you get this in playing sports, and you get this in being around teachers and educators that pour into you. They told me early, I had a teacher pull me aside one time. I don't remember his name. He was at Diamond Ranch. He was a retired police officer, and I think he taught English.
Okay.
But I don't remember his name. But he pulled me aside one day, and it was like we were in class cutting up. I had all these kids laughing. He pulled me aside, and he was like, hey, I want to tell you something real quick. He was like, you are a natural born leader. He says, people just follow you. Yeah. He's like, but what you decide to do with that power is up to you. And where you lead them is up to you. And that stuck with me. Mm-hmm. It's been 20 years since I think sophomore year of high school, and that always stuck with me. And he always said, you're a person that when you walk into a room, people are going to notice you. And he's like, and what you choose to do with that power is ultimately your decision. So I knew right off the bat that the medical field wasn't something that, maybe I was interested in it. I think I dabbled with it a little bit. I considered it, but it wasn't like that tug for me to dive into. Yeah. And honestly, I had an ROP class. I took a public safety course. And there was a lot of things that I liked about the medical field, I consider intertwined, that was also very present in that line of work. And it was the unknowns. It was feeling that you're called to serve, but it wasn't being called to the hospital setting. And I knew I wanted a type of work where I wasn't mundane. I didn't know the day-to-day expectations, but it was going to allow me to, still serve at the same time. I think that's ultimately kind of what led me to go that route. So, we made some mistakes along the way, and we hung out with some knuckleheads and didn't take the traditional routes. But I always felt like I think the biggest urge I've had in life is to find out what my true potential is. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm constantly willing to reinvent myself by taking those lessons I've learned along the way and to utilize them, whether it's teaching others what they should do to avoid, or it's using it as that inspiration for me to achieve ultimately what I want to do in life.
going into law enforcement, and especially from coming up where we came up, the way we came up, you know, it's sports. You know, you got dudes from the hood, you got different gangs, and you have that influence. And even though we were never in gangs, we have friends in gangs, and, you know, we played sports with them. We grew up with them. It's just we're intertwined. How was it balancing wanting to go into law enforcement and knowing you had to be disciplined and stay away from certain things, but at the same time, you're around people that...
Those are your relatives.
Those are your relatives,
boys,
bro.
right.
That's a balance, and we know they'll use it against you when you're going out for, like, when you're taking tests and you're doing backgrounds and stuff like that. But you were always able to really balance that perfectly without getting in trouble. Kind of, how did you manage that? And how can someone else manage that? Because there's a lot of people who want to go this way, but they're still kind of here. You know what I mean?
You know, like one of the first lessons I think in that was my mom used to always tell me that when my grandfather was raising 3 girls in the city of Compton in the 80s, he used to always tell them, like, you don't have to be a product of your environment. Like, just because you come from somewhere and just because that's what's constantly going around you and that's what's constantly happening around you doesn't mean that you have to necessarily partake in that. And remember how I mentioned my parents would expose my brother in all of these different environments?
Right.
So what that allowed me to do is I could talk to anybody.
Yeah.
You can put me in a room in a 3-piece suit, or you can put me in a room of gangbangers and Watts, and I can move.
Right.
I know how to move.
Right.
And I'm very confident now. Like, I don't care if you put me on the corner somewhere. I don't care if you put me in a conference room with a CEO of the airport, which I've been in as well. I know how to speak to anybody. And I feel like that's one of my strongest gifts is that I'm not intimidated by titles. I'm not intimidated by what you've achieved. I'm not intimidated by your PhD. You know, I'm a person with real experiences too. And I'm also well studied and I'm well prepared. And I've gone to school as well. So I may not have the doctorate next to my name, but it doesn't mean I'm less prepared than you are to walk into this meeting. And I'm very confident in that. And I think my gift of effective communication and being able to articulate effectively has allowed me to enter rooms and work rooms that most people would shy away from or feel not prepared for. So I always just tell people, expose yourself to those type of environments because if you're uncomfortable there, it forces you to grow. You know, and like we said a couple episodes ago, you know, act like you belong there.
Right.
Because if you tell yourself, I belong in this room, you're going to do what it takes to keep you in that room. You know, and I've sat in meetings now that 5 years ago I would have never thought I would have been able to participate in, you know, and sitting down with owners of billion-dollar companies, and I'm having these conversations. They're asking me, you know, well, what do you suggest we do in this circumstance, right? This is the risk that we perceive. How would you handle it? I'm like, you don't know for me?
Yeah.
You know, but it's because they see something in you, and I think that's key. You have to get around people that see something in you that you may not necessarily see in yourself at that time.
Yeah.
You know, and like you've mentioned before too, when you get around people and they're asking you for things and you may not necessarily see what they see in you, it wakes you up.
Right.
You know, it's like they see something. I mean, it could be your dad who you've always looked up to your entire life. And my dad gives me compliments sometimes, and he's always been a superhero in my life. And I'm like, really? You see that in me?
Right.
And he's like, wow, you explain that so well. Or you really articulate in that area, et cetera, right? Or you just get around people that you view to be smarter than you. But I think it's important to surround yourself in those environments because when someone sees something that you don't see in yourself, it wakes you up and you start saying, okay, maybe I do have that, you know, potential. Maybe I am capable of more than I give myself credit for. So that's the number one, you know, pointer I would give somebody is that get in environments that make you uncomfortable because it's going to require your elevation to keep you in those environments.
Okay, so we talking elements and places that make you uncomfortable. And I remember the whole time you're talking and we're looking at where you are now. I remember when I first met you, talking about an uncomfortable situation.
Right.
I come in from Long Beach and I'm headed to this school and I'm at the middle school and we're at Lord Beer middle school, man. And so we pull up and it's the first time I ever had to wear like a uniform.
Right.
So I don't know what this is. The first person I meet, I'm walking and I'm like, I see this ponytail in front of me. And I look down and I see I'm looking like these Buffalinos. I'm like, man, that's a big girl right there. Right from behind because the hair was just long, like, and just like on point. So I'm like, but yo, she fresh, man. Like, you know, that's a big, like that, you know. And so all of a sudden, like, I turn around because I wasn't used to seeing people with like dudes with long hair like that.
It
so
was like Bone Thugs and Harmony,
bro, like
long, braided
no,
up.
my man was plaited, like you know. So I was like, yo, like she with the business, or like you know. So then I was like, nah, but the way the way they walking, like, ain't no way. So, you know, we cross, I come to the side and I see Cam and I'm like, yo.
Right.
I ain't never seen anything like that unless you were looking at Booyah Tribe, but I never seen like, you know, like I didn't see anything like that. So I see him, he got the fresh taper on, got the fresh Buffalinos on, looking crispy. And I'm like, yo, hey, what up, man? He's like, yo, what up, bro? Like, it was kind of like one of those things, like, yo, I'm Cam, you knew? I was like, yeah. And he's like, yo, what's your name? I'm like, Jeff. He's like, oh, okay, but everybody calls me J.O. So you're like, all right, cool, you can rock with me. And so we start rocking together. We start hanging. You're other than you and Corey and Hop, you're the longest friendship that I have. Yeah. Like we talking over 20 years of friendship in the middle of this. And so we started this journey together. And then we fast forward, we're in high school. And while we're in high school together, I took a turn to go a different direction where I'm just like, you know, feeling the tension of high school. I'm feeling frustration. You're there. And while we're starting to ball out, right? You are being who you are. Now we step into this realm where we got people from Pomona who know about you. They know about your family. And you're having to navigate a lot of these waters of cats who were trying to put labels on you in that moment and stuff that you had to navigate while we were trying to grow up, while we were trying to deal with some stuff. And so when you talk about situations that seem uncomfortable, when we were in high school, there was a lot of uncomfortable situations that you had to fight. I mean, I'm talking like we had the race wars that were going on when we were growing up. So you fighting one race against another race, and like we were like, we in it. It's green light in Pomona on blacks, and so we're having to navigate this discomfort, and yet you're having to walk still in both of these worlds, where on one side of it, you got mom and pops who are like, yo, you got to have better education. On the other side, you got the family from Pomona who you're with because that's your family, and you're having to walk this tight line in uncomfortable situations. And even in this moment with this race riot,
super uncomfortable. Like, even like there were known killers, who aren't around anymore.
Hold on. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. We're gonna go there because we said gloves off. Yeah, gloves off. No filters, bro. Tell the story of what happened at one of the craziest stories
I tell people all the time,
bro, that I've ever heard. And you guys, when you hear this, y'all gonna be like, ain't no way.
You talking about when Duke came up at lunchtime?
Yeah, bro.
So there was an altercation that took place.
You don't have to say no names.
And it was crazy because it was actually over me having a class with his girlfriend. And he was not of our race, right? He didn't hang out with the people that we hung out with. And like you mentioned at the time, it was almost like declared a beef just because of who you associate yourself with or what you look like.
Right.
You know, and so again, I had this class with his girlfriend. I remember he approached me one day and he was just like, "Hey, I don't want her hanging out with people like you." I'm like, people like me? Like, what do you mean, right? Yeah. So long story short, he tried to incite me, into a physical altercation. But those are also the days where if someone who looked like us encountered someone who looked like them, you had 50 people behind you and he had 50 people behind him.
Right.
So again, when you talk about this balancing act, it's like, my identity was an athlete. My identity was someone who talked to everyone. My identity was I knew people from everywhere, but I didn't need to associate with a specific group because that's just how I moved, right? We talked to everybody, made everybody laugh, just a kind person. Right. And that's who our character was. Yeah. But the thing was that when you get involved in these situations, tension rises very quickly.
Absolutely.
And being an athlete, I've always been bigger than most people our age since kindergarten. I was always biggest. I was second tallest, if not the tallest in my class. And that intimidated a lot of people. And to this day, people always tell me, you look very intimidating when we see you.
Right.
And then when we get to talk to you, it's like, oh, he's a cool cat.
Yeah.
But at 14, 15, 16 years old, it's us versus them. You know what I mean? And that was the mentality. Because even if that wasn't my intention, it was the people who looked like me was conveying that message to his side. It's whatever y'all want to do. It's whatever you want to do. So he said some things to me, was overheard. He got suspended because of what he was trying to incite me to do. And then I remember a couple of days later, there were some people coming up and they were saying, hey, that person is telling people he's coming up here at lunchtime. He's looking for you. And I remember that time, my mom was aware of the riots that were going on because she was seeing them in the fights. I think she was in the parking lot picking us up one day, and the kids, everybody was black on brown fighting.
Yeah.
And I remember she kept saying, "I'm gonna pull you out of there, I'm gonna pull you out of there," because she was scared for my safety. You got to come out of that school. Well, this particular day, people are saying he's coming up here, and I'm thinking like,
what? And Jeff was like, "Where you at?"
because it was an environment that you couldn't show fear in because fear equated to weakness.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And it's like because regardless of what you were involved in, they knew where your family lived, right? So they associated you with certain neighborhoods because he's got cousins that live over there, his auntie lives over there, so he's from over there. So regardless of the message we try to convey, the focus that we had on sports, whatever the case was, you just got to associate. It's prison mentality that trickles down on the street is what happens. You know what I mean? So again, it's like, well, we're thinking if he comes up here, we're just gonna box it out. We're just gonna square up. We're gonna fight. And it's gonna be what it is.
Easy work.
But then people were telling us, like his girlfriend was telling people to tell me, "No, you don't understand. He's not coming to fight. He feels disrespected. He's trying to make a name for himself in these streets." Yeah. So, by the grace of God, we missed each other on campus. This same exact day, it came out an hour later he killed a police officer, trying to make a name for himself to get initiated into this gang that he was trying to get into in broad daylight,
outside of a court.
Yeah. So, situations like that is when I say, like, God spared me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I'm sitting here thinking, like, we're going to box it out, but bro wasn't trying to box. You know what I mean? His intention was to murder someone that day to make a name for himself in this gang that he was trying to get himself established with.
Bro, that's wild.
Stress, bro.
Like,
stress.
Yeah, that's why. And I remember I was in class and they were saying it, and I was the last person to try to be safe. I was the guy that you didn't want around you when that stuff happened. I was like, well, then what we doing? You know what I'm saying? But and I'm grateful that I wasn't around because I probably wouldn't be around. But I remember I was in class and I was hearing this, so I was like, yo. And as you talk about this of God guiding you, God protecting you, right? This is kind of like in this space where you're beginning to make some realizations that you balling out. In high school, you're doing your thing. Even in life, man, you've always had this ability since I've known you. You always had the cleanest cars. You always had this cleanest thing. But right in the middle between high school and college, in that phase, we got a little lost. We got a little things got a little haze. We got lost in the sauce, if you were trying to live that life, man, and really just trying to enjoy life, but not even make moves to go forward. And in the middle of this, though, you still kind of had this idea of what you wanted to do, whether it was law enforcement or those moves of where you wanted to move. In the middle of you talking about God getting you, now you're starting to get traction. Now you're starting to make money. Now you're starting to see your life kind of falling into place. Something happens. And because you're no stranger to adversity in your life and hardships in your life, prior to you were, everybody knew Cam. Prior to you've made decisions and choices that could have ruined your reputation, ruined your name. In those hard moments, before we get to this one, bruh, share how even those moments and those decisions that you made, whether it was living for the moment, like where was your mindset at as you were moving, and even some of the mistakes you made in that phase before you hit this block? Like, I mean,
the comment a little bit, like when you mentioned about like my car and my shoes, I got that from my grandpa. And he was just this old school, clean dude from the South. Family, like I said, came from Louisiana, and he's just a cat that grew up in Watts, ultimately moved to Compton, and the most like immaculately clean,
facts,
old school, shaved, creased jeans, shoes always clean, car immaculate. And I got that from him. And I remember he told me, like, as a young boy, that he says, there's two things that say a lot about a man, and that's his shoes and his car. If you see a man, he's got these filthy shoes on, it probably says a lot about the care that he. And we're not talking about someone that maybe is unfortunate to have.
Right, I got you.
But if you're comfortable, not presenting yourself in a clean manner, or you're comfortable driving around a dirty car every day, he's like, that says a lot about you, and that stays with me. And I don't care whether I was in my sickest moments of life or doing my best. There's two things you're not gonna catch me, and that's a dirty car and those dirty shoes, and I'll stand on that. And I'll stand on that. You know what I mean? So that's where that came from. But I think what I've realized as I've gotten older, every time I found myself lost in life, or every time I found myself making poor decisions, it was because I was not being true to who I truly am.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
And I think it's people pleasing. And I think it's about insecurities. And I think it's about worrying so much about what others have to say about you that you lose sight of what you tell yourself on a daily basis. Yeah. And I think if you are around people enough who are constantly telling you the negative or constantly telling you something against your own beliefs, it's only a matter of time before you start adopting theirs. Yeah. So if they say you're not this, you're not that, you'll never be this, you're only good enough to achieve this, that person doesn't deserve you, you begin to believe it. Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important to have a foundation. And I think you can adopt new habits. I think you can change things. Sometimes your foundation changes, your circle changes. Sometimes you can start with 10 people. You got to lose a couple along the way. Yeah. You'll pick up somebody else. Maybe that wasn't with you in the beginning. But ultimately, I think it's about designing the people that you have around, designing your team, right? Handpicking your team and not settling with the people that, just because we grew up together or just, we used to hang out on the playground, so I'm loyal to them. No, man. I think it's reciprocity, and I think you have to have people in your life that pour into you and, like we said, remind you of the person that you are even when you don't see it or feel it. Yeah. And I think, again, every time I look back and look at some of the mistakes I made early in life or when I was just lost and misguided, it was because I was trying to pretend to be something that I was not. I was trying to pretend to enjoy things that I did not enjoy. Wow. Yeah, I was pretending to be in places that I did not enjoy because that's where the people I was hanging with were hanging out. And I think when you get back to who you truly are, but first it's discovering who you truly are is when you can kind of make those changes. But people pleasing and trying to be what other people want you to be will mislead you every single time.
Real quick before we move into your story going forward, you said discovering who you are. Mm-hmm. Is there a moment, is there a story, is there a time, when did you discover, like, you always know who you are, but it's almost like you're always a beta version of your true self. Yeah. But there was a time when all of us, each time in our life, where we really was like lock in and then went to that place. And like, what the words that are coming to me is like accountability, because I know you had great mentors like Chief Williams. Mm-hmm. And you guys also helped me with accountability around those times. And like you said, talking about how you were never afraid to converse with people. The word that's coming to me is courage, because you like never had no fear. Mm-hmm. Like even to the point where, we got into situations and you zero fear. Like I'm in it. I'm handling the situation. So how did that discovery
happen? You know what's crazy about that? Mm-hmm. Every time that I came off courageous, I was scared to death.
Wait.
Every single time.
Say that again?
Every time that you saw courage and fearlessness on the outside, I was scared to death on the inside. But when you get in those situations where you realize there's only one thing that's going to get me out of it, and then need to realize that I'll die right here, right now. I'll die for what I believe in. I'll stand on what I believe in, regardless of the circumstances around me. That is what gets you through those moments. And I believe in that. Yeah. And it's like, Nip has this line where he says, I don't stress out, I poke my chest out.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? And I'm gonna chest out. I'm gonna poke my chest out exactly. The weight on your shoulders will bring the best out every single time. And it's in those moments that you will find out what you are truly made of. When you're scared to death, when you feel you have a lack of resources, you don't have options because you only have two. What's crazy is that as complex as that can seem in that moment, you only have two choices. You either give up or you keep going.
Keep going. You're giving me chills, bro.
You either give up or you keep going. That's it.
That's so hard for people. It's hard for me. Like, for example, like every time I go on stage and speak, right? And you tell me how you feel when you go on stage to speak. I always have this thought of just leave. Right?
Yeah. Do you back out or do you follow through?
Every single time. Yeah. But I still go up there and do it. But I'd be like, hey, yo, just leave.
But what's crazy is every time you do that, it's like it's a cheat code to crack a new level. Yeah. Because now you walk away knowing like, dang, I accomplished something I didn't even know I was capable of.
Bro, I be in speaking engagements, getting ready. I be driving over there talking about, man. Maybe I just tell them I got sick.
Exactly.
Like you ready to back out? Like, yo, man, it's the craziest thing. But
it's crazy. Like, and that's like the power in fear, though. And I always tell people, because we overcomplicate the situation. I don't know, don't overcomplicate. You got two choices: either follow through with your word and your commitment, or you back out of it. And that's literally what it comes down to. So I was telling like, don't overcomplicate the situation. But if you don't put yourselves in those situations where fear is driving you to your edge, right? Like fear can literally manipulate the outcome of your situation. So it's either like you roll along with the fear and, I got sick last minute, I hope you guys forgive me, or I got sick, can I reschedule? Or you show up scared to death and you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought you were capable of in that moment of fear controlling things.
So every time you made fear your compass.
You making me compass.
And then every time you move, even when you feel that fear, you're reinforcing with yourself that you can trust yourself to make the move when you need to make that move.
You know what? There's situations and this can talk. We've had situations too where it's like you get in these situations with a confrontation with somebody, or maybe it's a business situation, whatever it is. But there's a moment in that time when you wonder if you're gonna make it out. But because you choose to put fear to the side and you just let your morals or your integrity or your desire drive you in those situations, when you come out the other end, like you said, you learn so much more about yourself in that process.
Okay, hold on. So now we talking. Now we getting into this. If you guys are tuning in, watching this, man, we got none other than Cam right here with us, and this is our brother as we're going through this journey of learning who he is. So we talked about your story. We talked about you moving forward. We talked about transitions, but I want to get to the crux before we leave out of this podcast. There ain't no way.
Come on now.
That we not going into this episode where we at LaRon. I'm just letting you know, bro. We may need some tissues in a couple minutes, my man. As we about to go, my man LaRon on point right now. Yo, we keeping it real. This is the part of the story where there's a plot twist. Yeah. This is the part of the story that we talked about, man. We don't know how we gonna handle this moment. We don't know what's gonna happen when we go this route. So once we go here, this is the point of no return. Yeah. I'm just letting y'all know, like, this is the point of no return. There's a moment in your life where you are faced with the biggest battle that nobody ever wants to hear. Yeah. Tell us about, this is one of the hardest moments of your life. And as you're looking at this moment, one of the hardest moments of your life, tell us about what happened to you, because you're talking about when you're faced with fear, you got two choices, and you were faced with some crazy stuff. Tell us what happened, man. Tell all of us.
Yeah, at 28 years old, what I'm thinking is the prime time of my life. I was in great shape. Me and Dips were in the gym daily. Yep. Things were happening in my career that were really starting to push me to the next level. And what literally took place was what I thought was
I appreciate you.
What I thought was the flu at the time.
Go ahead. Hey, for real.
Bro really brought him though.
Really got tissues, right? All right, come on. Man, we got them on deck if we need them.
All right, so I'm just gonna get to the point and say that I thought I had the flu for about 2 weeks. Wasn't getting better. Mom saw me losing weight, and I was losing weight, but I was holding fluid. Yeah. Legs swelling up, ankles swelling up, all these different things, right? Signs of something seriously taking place. Go to the doctor, run some blood work. Doctor comes back, says, hey, you have end-stage renal disease at 28 years old. Your kidneys are not working. We had no idea what caused it. It was diagnosed as idiopathic. It was not genetics. None of my family had the condition. So I went in thinking I'm going to go in and get an IV of some fluids, going to get me back on my feet. I spent 9 days in the hospital. I started dialysis. I had tubes. I had a catheter directly to my heart.
Wait, hold on. Slow down, G.
I mean,
you said dialysis?
Dialysis, bro.
And what is dialysis?
Break down dialysis to people, because dialysis is
it's rough. It's no way to live. I will say that. And I will say that it's not a cure. It just keeps you alive long enough where you can hopefully get a transplant, which will give you somewhat of a quality of life back to you. You picture a machine looks like a mini fridge. And picture they put two 16-gauge needles in your arm. They're connected to these long tubes. One of the needles is taking your blood, putting it into this machine that's cleaning it and detoxifying the toxins and all these things that your kidneys would do for you naturally if they're working properly. So this is almost like an artificial kidney for you.
Right.
But, your kidney is doing it around the clock. So you go to this machine 3 times a week, 5 hours a day, and it's cleaning your blood, and it's putting it back to the other needle, and it's putting it back into your system, right? So 3 hours a day, 5 hours a day.
A day. And
you're tethered to this machine.
Do they just leave the needles in you because they know you're coming back every day, or do they put them in you fresh every day?
Every single day. You're getting poked. You're getting re-poked every single time. 16 gauge needles.
That's a big needle.
A straw. See this? See the diameter of this cord? That's how big the needle is.
Yeah.
Do they numb you?
No.
Nah.
And you're getting 2 of them.
Yeah.
You're getting 2 of them every single time.
Oh.
And it's just like, I mean, the only way I can describe to you, if you've never been to if you want to find appreciation in life real quick, go visit a dialysis clinic.
Yeah.
Because you'll see 20 people around in one room, sitting in recliners, connected to the machines that look like zombies. You are lifeless because you're nauseous the entire time. Usually you have an excruciating headache because this machine is moving so fast that, all of your blood's being taken out and it's putting back into you. Maybe you're doing it 3 times a week. I would wake up at 3:30 o'clock in the morning, be there at 4. I wouldn't leave till 11:30 noon. You're doing it 3 days a week. So what happens is your entire life is now dependent on this treatment. You are tethered to this machine. And that was my life for 5 years until, the grace of God, I was blessed with a kidney transplant.
So in the middle of all of that, in the middle of this ordeal, was it like, oh yeah, cool, you got a kidney transplant, like you're good to go? Did you have it in your head like, yo, one day, I'm gonna get better and this is gonna be good to go? In that moment, you said you're watching people who are literally zombies dying. Did you watch people die around you?
Yeah, literally. There was times where like it wouldn't be uncommon to see your neighbor sitting next to you just go completely unconscious in the chair. Just lose consciousness. Ambulance coming in, putting them on the gurney, taking them off. Either their blood pressure dropped too low, weren't getting enough oxygen. They're complaining of heart pains because heart's rapidly, tachycardia is just rapid heartbeat. And it wasn't uncommon. Say that'd be on a Friday. You come back Tuesday for your next treatment or Monday for your next treatment. You ask about them, they'll tell you they passed away over the weekend. In 6 years, that probably happened to me 6-7 times with a person who was my immediate neighbor, who I saw 3 times a week, 5.5 hours a day. You have these conversations with the entire time, just they don't return. They lost their battle to kidney disease, which is the number 9 leading cause of death in the country.
So, like in that moment, did you ever feel like, dang, am I next?
Of course. It's always in the back of your mind because it's such a progressive disease. Like I honestly didn't even tell anyone I had kidney disease aside from my immediate family, including my brothers, until I just couldn't hide it anymore. And it gets to a point where you will not be able to hide it anymore because you're just so physically deteriorated. But I want to fast forward a little bit out of that because there's some huge lessons that I feel I learned in that moment.
Talk about that.
And the thing that's most important that I think now that I tell people all the time is that, people always say, oh, you were so strong. How did you do it? And my response was, what choice did I have? What were my options? So we talk about you only have two options, right? You either gave up or I kept going until I literally was unable to go anymore. And your mind will play tricks on you the entire time. There were times where I would come home from treatment and sometimes sit in my car for hours after a treatment because I would just break down. Like, you just break down because you're thinking, like, how is this my life at 28 years old? All of my neighbors in this dialysis clinic are in their 70s, they're in their 80s. I'm the only person in there under probably the age of 55, 60. But, when I talk about that victim mentality, that's literally what I was stuck in for a very long time. And I would always post things and tell people things that, victories in reach, because I did believe that. I was like, if there's more to my life than this, then we'll achieve victory. But if not, I'm going to be an example of showing people what it looks like to get up and fight for something every single day. But, I've been transplanted now 3 years, and it's funny because I talk about, the brand Moving Mountains, and I mention that because the way I view it now is that I don't think I'm special for beating dialysis and kidney disease. I don't consider myself like this hero. I don't consider myself this amazing human being that overcame this crazy disease, because what I've realized is that we all move mountains in our life. And if you're here on earth long enough, you will be assigned a mountain to move. And it doesn't matter if it's dialysis and kidney disease. That's what my assignment was. Your assignment might have been incarceration. Someone else's assignment might be addiction. Someone else's assignment might have been foster care. Someone else's assignment might have been abandonment. Someone else's assignment might have been addiction or an abandonment. You know, whatever the case is. So I think we're all assigned these mountains to move at some time in life. And that's why that was just my assignment at that time. Now, if we live long enough, we're going to have multiple assignments in life. Yeah. You know, and that's the way I look at it, is that was my assignment in that time. And I think we're given assignments for a reason. And I think my assignment in that moment was to show people that mountains are meant to be moved. And as hard as it was, and as how the most difficult task I've been in my life, because of those mountains that are placed in front of me, it's allowed me to be in positions now where I can be a resource to other people. You know, people call me and say, my sister's boyfriend just got diagnosed with kidney disease. Can I have him call you? Do you want to come in and talk about dialysis? Do you want to come advocate for kidney disease patients? So again, I think there's a mission behind all of it. I think there's a purpose for all of it. And I think that goes for everyone who has a mountain assigned to them in their life. You got to move it.
Yeah. When you talk about moving mountains, when I think of mountains, I think of heavy. Mm-hmm. And the only way to move something heavy is with strength. Mm-hmm. And you were losing physical strength, but you were gaining godly strength. And when you were going through it, you did a lot of things. You started riding bikes. Mm-hmm. You wrote a book. Mm-hmm. You were just figuring out ways to get stronger, to lift this heaviness. And I know you said you didn't have a choice. It was keep going or stop. But talk about someone who has something heavy they need to lift. What can they do? Because when something's heavy, you can't make it lighter. A lot of times we pray to make it lighter, to take it away, but it ain't going anywhere. We have to get stronger, and we have to figure out a way to handle this mountain. Mm-hmm. What can you...
Yeah. And before you answer that, I want you to answer it in light of you coming from one challenge of almost not making it and going on the list, off the kidney list, you get kidney transplanted. Fast forward, you find the love of your life.
Yeah.
And you guys have something happen, because it's not just about moving mountains, it's about trusting the journey.
Yeah.
Gloves off.
Gloves off. I think to answer your question, Dips, I think you have to ask yourself often, because I think the answer can change often, and it's, what do you want to leave behind when you leave this earth? And I think you can be stripped of maybe your initial resources, and I think you have to constantly reinvent a new answer to that question. And I know for me, I wanted to leave impact more than anything. You know, Stephen Covey wrote in 7 Habits that we should live our lives with our funeral in mind. And it sounds crazy to think that way. But he says, you should ask yourself, when I'm laying there in a coffin and people are coming up and speaking about me, what are they going to say? You know, what are they going to say about your character? What are they going to say about the way you live life? What are they going to say about the way you make other people feel? Now, we make mistakes along the way. We hurt people. We make mistakes that we fall short of our true potential. Right. But if you're constantly asking yourself that question, and as you tweak your answer, the only way you can tweak your answer is by tweaking your lifestyle as well. So I believe that, and I think that when I wasn't physically able to move those mountains, I knew that I had to leave an impact in other ways. And it was, when you write something, no one could take that from you. Right. When you pour into somebody, people can't take that from you. And I think, people may forget some of the things that you told them, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Mm-hmm. So I think one of my biggest purposes in life now is just to encourage people to feel strongly about their situation, to constantly reinvent themselves, and to feel that there's always more than what you're currently going through. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you talk about love and relationships, man. I was blessed to find someone who encompasses everything that I wish I had in my darkest moments. Because when you're alone, you feel that like it's almost impossible to truly find that. Yeah. And it's just things like, someone's integrity. Are they truly there because they want to be there? And just for me, one of the things that kind of sealed the deal on my behalf was there's a lot of insecurities I developed when I was sick. I had aneurysms that went down my forearms that looked like 4 huge lumps that I was almost ashamed to show to the public, because it was I knew it would always bring up questions. Damn, what happened to your arm? Right. And that was the reaction that I was so used to receiving from people that I figured if I could just hide it, it'll be 100 degrees outside, I have a jacket on. Yeah. Because if I could just hide it, then I wouldn't have to talk about it.
Right.
And I started seeking out environments where it wouldn't be brought up and mentioned. I started getting around people who didn't know my story. Mm. But this particular person, Christian, used to tell me that's my most favorite thing about you. Yeah. She would tell me, I used to sit there and say, I can't wait to get this surgically removed. And she would say, why? Like it's a trophy to show that you survived what killed you or what tried to kill you. Boy. You know what I mean? So cheat code, man. I'm just going to throw that out there real quick, man. And shout out to Christian because she's absolutely amazing in dark times and the best of times, bro. She was just somebody who constantly poured into me. It was just like, you know, told me the things I didn't want to hear. And sometimes that's tough for us as men. We think we got it figured out, and we always have to show this confidence, and I got it figured out, and things are under my control. It's amazing to have someone that says, you're not in control, you don't have it figured out, but I'm going to rock with you until you do figure it out. Yeah. You know, and that's just a different level of intimacy that I never experienced before. You know, and I got to just encourage men and women, man, to just get around someone that sees the beauty that you can't see. You know, that find someone that's willing to kiss your scars instead of the beautiful things about you, you know, and they're going to love them just as much as they love everything else about you that you think is beautiful. So, yeah, man, that's I don't want to get too caught up on that. That's emotional, man, but it's important to just find people, man, that love the things about you that you find hard to love.
So as we look at this, man, and we look at your story and moving from pain and all of these backgrounds, I love the tagline of moving mountains. Mm-hmm. And when you say trust the journey, as you look at your life, man, and as you look at your story and as you look at everything that you've done, what does it mean to trust the journey? If somebody's watching this and they're looking at their surrounding and they may be fighting for their life, they may be trying to fight to get out of old habits, new mindsets. They may be trying to fight to get out of constraints. When you make the statement, trust the journey, how does somebody trust well, first off, what does it mean? And then how do I trust a journey when the road seems impossible in front of me?
Man, I think it's a loaded question. We could probably do a whole other episode on that. But in a nutshell, I would say that it's believing that wherever you are in life is exactly where you're supposed to be. And don't try to fast forward the process. You know, we always talk about sit in your current moment and experience what you're going through and feel that pain.
Yeah, bro.
You know, and we talk about, like we just mentioned, the relationship. It doesn't mean that because this person was amazing and because I valued them and saw what they brought in my life, that's been perfect either. Right. You go through things. Right. And I think it hurts in those moments, but I think the biggest lesson is that you have to take a lesson away from it. Yeah. And I think if you can understand that you're exactly where you're supposed to be because that pain and that disappointment that you feel about yourself or you feel about your situation is preparing you to step into something that you can't even imagine. You can't even imagine. You can't even imagine the person you're going to be.
Bro, that's so
you can't even imagine your full potential. Think about you and being blessed with everything you ever prayed for, and then imagine something that's beyond that. You can't even fathom your full capability. And I think that's what's so important about trusting the journey is that go through that pain, go through that disappointment, cry those tears and feel all of it. Because remembering that pain and remembering what it felt to wish for the things that one day you're going to have is just what's going to keep you humble. It's what's going to keep you grounded. It's what's going to keep you working, right? Almost losing the love of your life is going to make you say, I ain't never gonna F this up again.
Now, boy, you talking.
You better tighten up. You better understand that the value that person has. You better understand why you've been blessed with that person, right? If you've lost your savings, the next time you're out there recklessly spending, you're gonna remember what it felt like to have to eat ramen noodles for a month straight while you're waiting on a check. You know what I mean? Like when you gotta get on that 210, which is 2 feet and 10 toes, because that car, because you don't have that car, that's what's gonna keep you grounded. And I think. You know, trusting that journey, right? That journey is what's ultimately going to be your guide. You know, that pain that you feel in that process, and you gotta recognize it, you gotta acknowledge it, and this is the hard part. You gotta thank God for it, because it's hard to thank God for pain. Yeah, but that pain is going to change you, and it's going to change you way more than success ever could.
Bro, that's so real, and I think earlier today I put out something on the gram where I was like, yo, man, if God is pressing you, he's not punishing you, he's pruning you. Mm-hmm. And every time that God begins to press you, if God is in you, the more you get squeezed, the more of God that pops out of the scenario, man. And so hearing you and looking at where you are, the different companies that you have and how you're moving, it blesses me. Mm-hmm. To know that you are, brother. And for us, we had a front row seat. The good, the bad, the ugly. And I think what's important, man, that you share with us is that as we're here on this show, please don't get it twisted. Yeah. Come on. In no way, shape, or form are we saying that we're here in front of these cameras because we're perfect. Mm-hmm. We're not saying that we have it all together. Come on. We're still in this process of becoming men and living out men. And we'll be in this process for the rest of our lives because identity is fluid, right? That's it. And so in this process, as we hear this, like, Cam, I want you, I want to say thank you for opening up.
Thanks, bro.
Your heart, bro, and bringing us in and getting us to that point where we're able to see our journey and let them know. If you had to leave them with one thought before we close out this episode, bro, what would you leave them with?
Two words, man. This chapter of my life is based on two things, and it's integrity and it's based on accountability. And I think anything that gets measured gets improved. So I think you need to constantly look at your life and say, where am I coming up short? And, I was sharing with you on the way up here that, as I'm being more intentional with my relationship with the Creator, man, I think that he's constantly reminding me, you need to hold yourself accountable and you need to be intentional. That's the word, is to be intentional in every area of your life. And I'm just going to say this, every area that you seek improvement in, you need to wake up and be intentional about it every single day. If you want to grow your business, you need to wake up and do something on a daily basis that enhances that. If your relationship means something, you need to wake up every single day and be intentional about that relationship and intentional about improving and intentional about being opening up and taking constructive criticism. So I would just say that hold yourself accountable, hold those around you that you love accountable, and be intentional about the things that you want to improve in. And you can't go wrong, bro.
There it is.
Come on. Well, listen, we want to thank you guys for being with us on this episode. Make sure that if you're watching and you haven't, smash that like button and smash that subscribe button. Make sure you share it. Let them know. And as we begin to continue to grow, we just want to let you guys know that we're honored to be with you guys in this journey. Yep. And so, like I said, my name is Jeff, a.k.a. J.O.
Roy, they call me Dips.
Yes, and it's your boy Cam, and I appreciate every single one of y'all. God
bless. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.